My parents were from Hunslet and I was brought up in Belle-Isle, both places in South Leeds. They are not well known for the kind of thing that I do, but it was a good environment to grow up in. I first started to write when I was about 8 years old. I used to write short stories, sometimes 5 pages long, sometimes 12. But I would never show them to anybody because I had trouble with my writing, couldn't spell, and were worried that people would laugh at me. So when I wrote a story, I'd just write it down and then tear it up. As far as my education was concerned, yes, it was an experience. I suffered from what's now known as dyslexia, but in South Leeds in the mid-60s it had a different technical name. It was called being an idiot, and that's how I would treat at school all through my school life, because I had a problem with reading. I can read, I know the words, but once I turn a page of a book, even if it's a Kindle, once I turn the page of a book, all the information from that page is not being retained in my brain, and I lose the story, you know, within reading 3 next words. So because of that, my schooling was not very good. I tend to spend most of my time on the rugby field rather than any intellectual things that went on. This was the reason why, really, I've been so late in bringing my books to the public, because I've always written stories, but I've never let anybody see them until now. I've been writing on and off throughout my life with the same problem, never showing anybody, not even my kids. But when I met my wife Bev, she once saw what I thought at the time was the start of a poem. It didn't rhyme, and for me, old-fashioned poems have to rhyme. So I just kept on writing and writing and writing, and she saw it. I immediately turned the machine off so she couldn't read anymore, and she asked me why I did it. I told her my phobia about people seeing my work, and then she convinced me to let her see it. It turns out that she actually liked it, and she encouraged me to go on. The thing is that she was a radio transcriptionist, which at the time I didn't know what one of them was. But it turned out that it's somebody that can type at 150 words a minute. So once she knew about my phobia, she just told me to just write, and she would take care of punctuation and things like that that I didn't know about through my bad time at school. And the story I was writing about was Atkinson's administration, which was a recurring dream I'd had from childhood, which I just put into a story. Atkinson is, in actual fact, what people know as the Grim Reaper. He takes your soul in a different dimension. It's set in modern times. It's not the chap with the black hood and sickle. He is in the guise of an accountant. He walks amongst people on this realm of existence, but he does his business in the realm of death, where when the scribe gives him your name, he cuts your cord, your mortal cord that links you to the sphere of death. When he cuts that cord in his realm, you die in yours. And basically, the story begins with a new reaper who wants to change things with catastrophic events following. It brings on what is predicted as Armageddon, which is covered in book 2, Atkinson's Armageddon, where the story carries on exactly from where it left off and takes you further into the story. I don't want to go any further than that because there's another 4 books to follow. This is the Leeds Steam Pump Market. It's held at this particular time in the Armley Mills Industrial Museum, which is a beautiful museum in Leeds. I am here because it's the book launch of my latest novel, A Switch in Time. This is special, one, because it's still standing, which is unusual these days, but it's been turned into a museum. In here there's all kinds of things from the Industrial Revolution, which is a time that I personally love, and it's what my book is based on. This was the reason we decided to actually do the launch of it here, because this building is actually in the story, but as a working mill back in the time when it, you know, in and around 1849, where part of the story is set. It's a marvellous story. I enjoyed writing this one. I enjoy writing them all, but this one in particular I really enjoyed. It's about the most spoilt woman in England, richest woman in England, who has everything, wants for nothing. And it's also about a woman of similar age, a lot of things about the two girls are similar, apart from the money and how they both live. Because the other girl lives in 1849. She is the daughter of a coal barge owner, and her life is toil. It's shoveling coal, it's driving a boat. It's the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, and they find themselves changing places. I won't go into how they change places. Into this, you've got to read the book for that. But the events of what happens for both girls is very entertaining. And it does point out the moral differences between then and now. As I came to the end of it and finished it, I realised it wasn't actually the end and it could go on a lot further. So its follow-up will be called A Woman at the Helm. And that along with book 3 of the Reaper series, is what I'm working on. The other string to my bow is poetry. I write simple rhyming poetry. They just come into my head and I jot them down. It usually happens when I'm writing one of my novels. But I now have 3 poetry books, each book with 50 poems in each, and they're called Rhymes, More Rhymes, and Here We Rhyme Again. All soon available on Amazon.